Right then, welcome back to the channel, Stephen Howson, and today we are talking about 5 things that are going wrong for Erik Ten Hag. Now, his United career started with so much hope. There was unlimited faith put in the man's abilities, especially after making some extremely tough decisions. I mean, the entire first year was just succession of tough decisions, and he made them without hesitation. He seemed to take a hell of a lot of ownership, which I've got a lot of respect for. But this season, the tide has begun to turn, and we've seen this happen countless times post Sir Alex Ferguson. Are the questions of the manager fair? Are the players turning on him? These are things that are going wrong, and I think it's fair to ask questions, and I think it's fair to try and investigate these things, but I think it's also fair to look at the mitigating circumstances and try and get a full holistic picture of what's going on. You can't just say, as I saw something from TNT the other day, which is like, oh, he's lost more games than David Moyes did the season that you sacked David Moyes. Okay, David Moyes took over the champions of England. The expectation levels are different, whether you like that or not. You taking a team from 1st to 7th is not the same as taking a team from 4th to 6th, which is where we find ourselves at the moment. Number 1, the man management side. Now, a manager has a desk full of responsibilities, and at Manchester United, they're probably more numerous than we will ever find out. And the man management side is one of the most important and difficult jobs. It's something that I'm not good at, I don't think. I think it's an area of my own management that I could hugely improve. And at Manchester United, with some of the egos, some of the money involved, some of the superstars that are involved, it's probably even harder, especially when you see the amount of external scrutiny that comes through. And man management is extremely tough. Every coach is different, every man is different, and every player has different needs that need to be massaged, and there's probably a lot of lying goes on, which is probably why I'm not good at it. Ten Hag came into this club with demands, and he has zero tolerance for disrespect and zero tolerance for anyone that's slacking. He seems to have come in with strong discipline, and some players have fallen foul of that. Garnacho fell foul of it, Rashford fell foul of it, Sancho and Ronaldo fell foul of it, and there's been even more than that have at least once seen the wrath of Ten Hag's discipline system. Sancho being the standout case in this instance, something that's gone on for more than a year with him. And this works when you're winning. When you're winning, no one questions anything that you do. It's the second that you lose a game, someone comes in on a Monday morning and goes, wait a minute, that's not right. Sir Alex Ferguson was a fucking ruthless bastard, right? Let's have it no two ways about it. Sir Alex Ferguson was a ruthless bastard. But there was a side to Sir Alex Ferguson where he had this honestly unfathomable memory where he could meet you once, right? His mum's called Sheila, his dad's called Frank. Right, okay, he's got 2 brothers and a sister. Right, okay. And he seemed to just have, I don't know if he wrote notes or if he just had insane recall. But Sir Alex Ferguson would be a ruthless bastard that would absolutely tear strips off you, but then he was like, how's your mum Sheila? And you go, huh, he's only met her once. How's he done that? And I think that was the genius of Sir Alex Ferguson, was that he was able to put aside a front on him which made him look like he genuinely cared, and he may have genuinely cared. That might have been his personality. But at the same time was extremely fucking cutthroat and ruthless. I think Ollie seemed to have, he was called soft. And I don't have any conversations, or I haven't had any conversations with players about whether or not that was the case. I did get told that he was harder in private than he was in public with the players, where he seemed to just take all the responsibility for everything. But, you know, he did dish it out a little bit in the changing room, but not to the point where he was screaming at people, just that, yeah, he's different almost. You have to have a balance with these things. One thing I have heard about Ten Hag is that he's a little bit too detail orientated in terms of he's got this system that he wants the players to play, but the man management in terms of like warmth isn't quite there with him. And I don't know if that's a Dutch thing, because I know Dutch players in the past have been accused of being a little bit cold and a little bit sharp-tongued. I don't know if that's just an extrapolation of that with a Dutch manager. And especially I think he's from quite a farmerish kind of part of the city where, the sense of humour is maybe a touch different. And I don't know if the personality of Ten Hag is truly coming across, or if he genuinely is maybe a touch on the cold side. That's heavily focused on what he wants in terms of the stats, but hasn't got that ability to kind of chill and relax. And that's something that I've heard from within the club. And they said the same thing actually. Is like, when you're winning, it's not a drama. When you're losing, you want someone to be able to come in and lighten the mood. To which my response was, is that what Steve McLaren's there for? Famously Dutch, also. But also Steve McLaren, known for being someone that's quite light, quite pally. And is that a bit of a genius move from Ten Hag to bring Steve McLaren in, to have someone that can sit there and have those personal conversations with players if it's something he's not capable of doing? Number 2, injuries. You can't deny the injuries. Like, we've had more injuries and more significant injuries than anybody else this season. And it feels like every single player at some point in the season has picked up a knock. It's not good for Ten Hag, but as the players are returning, you should start to see poor performances and poor results at least turn into poor results with better performances, until the tide turns and you start putting in good performances that beget good results. The excuses will then fade, and you will go, okay, no, you've had 3 or 4 weeks of having a fully fit squad, largely, or no more injuries to key players than anybody else has got in the league. We need to start seeing some results now. As the injuries fade, the excuses go with them. But I think it's a perfectly valid mitigation and reasoning for some of the poor performance. We have seen, Alessandro Martinez being out for essentially the entire season so far, for me, has been a killer blow. When you tie that in with, he was missing, Varane was missing, Eriksen was missing, and Casemiro was missing, and then Marcus Rashford's been playing but essentially missing, Bruno's been playing but essentially missing. You're talking 6 or 7 players through the core of your squad not playing or not performing to the level that they did last season. You can't ride that out. You can't ride that out. That's something that's going to impact what happens, and ultimately it's impacted how this season has gone. Number 3, transfers. Now, in Ten Hag's second year, we've already got a pretty good idea about the club's transfer strategy. There's been 13 players that have been brought in since Ten Hag joined the club. 8 of those players have once in their career played in the Netherlands, highlighting either the complete lack of scouting ability or potentially the overreach of Ten Hag, because there's not capable enough scouting systems in place. The majority of them have played under Ten Hag previously, which means that either we can't attract players who don't know him, and that's the club's fault, or there's too much power with Erik Ten Hag. I suspect the club is failing in its ability to reach out, negotiate, and finalise deals with players that we don't know. And that's coming from an angle of, I know a player that has recently negotiated with United and rejected us. So I think that's probably the case. And I think increasingly as United fall, until we start arresting that fall and turning it around, United will be seen as a place where people go, actually, nah, I'm gonna wait out and go somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with bringing players in that you've worked with. Sir Alex Ferguson did it. Sir Alex Ferguson's first few signings, there was a fair few that came from north of the border or people that Sir Alex Ferguson had experience with. But if they're not United quality, and the problem for Ten Hag is his marquee signing, Anthony, has really not been good enough. Now, Malacia was always going to be bought to be someone that was certainly a bit of a backup, I think. And that's fine. And he's looked okay when he's played. He hasn't been, an unmitigated disaster. He brings in Lisandro Martinez, cult hero, instantly. Like, fantastic player, one of the best centre-halves in the world. Casemiro comes in, bit of a slow start, gets up to speed, has people talking about Roy Keane comparisons, fucking brilliant. And then Anthony. I think it's too early right now to have any sort of label on Højlund. I think Onana, has got good and bad traits. I think he's largely a decent replacement for David De Gea. Anthony's got what is going to be what sinks him. Anthony's what I imagine Ineos are going. And to be fair, the article from Laurie Whitwell last week was sort of explaining how, Højlund, Onana, Anthony had all been, and Mount actually, who, we've not even spoken about Mount, but Mount isn't playing. He was identified at a certain price and then had to be signed at another price because mismanagement. Erik Ten Hag is going to get a lot of flack for the transfers because ultimately he's the guy in charge of the football team when those transfers happen. But I think that he's been really let down by the front of office at the club, massively overpaying. They've overpaid in virtually every signing, probably paid double what we should have paid. Now, technically that would mean that, yeah, we've spent a lot of money, but we could have got twice as many players in, or at least a third more players for the money we've spent, which might have left us in a better position going into the season if the front of house had done their job. So even though I don't necessarily think the transfers have been, certainly haven't been an unmitigated success, they've not been an unmitigated disaster either. I just think it's the Anthony one seems to stand out a little bit. Now, maybe the gaffer insisted on it, but maybe that shows the weakness in the system that the club has got. Klopp didn't want Salah, and he was almost forced into taking Salah. He turned out all right, I would say. Number 4, number of games. The number of games in modern football is draining for any squad, especially an injury-ravaged squad. And we saw last season United played in virtually every game that was available. We played as many games as Manchester City with a squad half as capable of doing anything as Manchester City's. And all of those problems start to tie together because a more stacked squad would be more prepared for the fixture congestion, more prepared for a freak amount of injuries, more prepared to actually get consistent results week in, week out because they were bigger and better prepared and you can rest key players. What happened with United last season is we had to just rinse player after player after player after player after player. And so many players following the EFL Cup win were just completely dead on their feet. Completely dead on their feet. You throw the World Cup into the mix in the middle of all of that lot as well. Then you have a quite short pre-season. You have that ravaging tour to America. And then you have the injuries that we've had coming into this season. We played too many games last season with the squad that we've got. And then this season, we've managed to... I think you'll see the fruits of this towards the back end of this season. Getting ourselves out of Europe wasn't what we wanted, but let's take it for what it is. It means a lot of midweeks off for us now and a lot of single game weeks, which is a bonus. We got ourselves out of the League Cup. Well, what does it matter anyway? We got fuck all credit for winning it, so who gives a fuck, right? We are in the FA Cup and we are still obviously involved in the hunt for top 4 in the league. We will be better equipped with dealing with those in the second half of the season without midweek games. So let's bring it on. Number 5, stubbornness. And on one hand, I think the stubbornness will kill Ten Hag's United career. Stubbornness to Anthony and McTominay. Not that there's a lot of things that he can do about that. Ten Hag is a stubborn man who believes in himself. Show me a manager who doesn't. Determination and perseverance are good qualities to have, but they can quickly turn to stubbornness and ignorance if things aren't working. As soon as there are options available, you want to see the likes of Anthony having to fight for his place rather than just be gifted his place, because the Anthony situation isn't just that he cost a lot, isn't just that he's underperforming, isn't just that he's had off the field issues, isn't just that he's completely out of form but still plays in week in, week out. He's also the catalyst for what happened, I believe, with Sancho. You can see a lot of things that are sort of circling that transfer in particular, and it might have been we overpaid of him. It might have been that Ten Hag was insistent on him. But ultimately, this boils down to the fact that our front of office is incapable of negotiating transfers, and it's incapable of identifying the correct targets to benefit a manager. That's it. All of this is problematic. Being versatile is a very important quality for a manager to have. Things clicked at Ajax. But if they're not working at United, he has to find a way to make it work. And to be fair, I think he is being a little bit pragmatic in that sense. He maybe come across a little bit blunt in the way that he said it, but when he goes, I can't play the way that you want me to play with this team because this team can't play that way, that was him probably admitting that he's had to adapt a little bit. So we will see. I still believe in him, because I think there's a lot of people that are failing around him, which is not helping him, including some of the players. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.